years old. Wow. Sometimes delays come from the time God gives a promise to the time that God exercises on that promise to fulfill it. There'll be a period of time that will lapse. God said to Moses, I want you to go down to Egypt, and I want you to tell Pharaoh to let my people go. They have been in bondage for 430 years, and I want them set free. I want them set free. Moses goes down, ends up on the backside of a desert, and 40 years later, he's still tending sheep and hadn't let one person out. Now, in 40 years, I would have given up. But God was conditioning him, because in the next 40 years, he was going to have an enormous journey on his hand. David was anointed king over Israel. Samuel walked up with that big horn of oil and poured it over his head, all down his body, saturated him with oil, anointed him to be the king. Yet he didn't occupy a throne for years later. Sometimes the promises of God have delays. Delays don't mean no, they just mean wait a minute. They just mean wait a little while. Jesus was anointed to be the Messiah. Yet he had to work in a carpenter shop 30 years before he got a chance to do his first preaching. What about your life? What is God doing for you? Then the next thing, after you're going to have the delay, you're going to have difficulty. Number 4, you're going to have difficulty. I don't know whether you have discovered or not, life sometimes is pretty tough. When folks tell you that life is easy, I just think they're good liars. Life is tough. Life isn't easy for anybody. Life is tough. Sometimes when there's more month than there is money. Sometimes when there are problems with the family, problem between the spouses, problem with the children, problems in the health, all of those things, difficult times. Man that is born of woman is a few days and full of trouble. Life isn't easy. I have not found life to be easy, but I have found it to be extremely rewarding. There are 2 primary problems that happen in all of our life. Number 1 is circumstances, and number 2 are critics. Let's see, I don't remember whether I've ever had any critics or not, but I'm just guessing that I assume I have. I assume I have. You know what I found out? That most of the people that are most critical of me are people that are doing nothing themselves. I mean, they're doing absolutely nothing, and they criticize everything you go to do. Now, I love what I do. I love what I do. I love what I'm involved in. I love our ball programs next door. Now, if I were to operate or not operate that based on whether people care about it or not, guess what? We'd never have another basketball program. But this afternoon, between the time of 1 and about 10 tonight, I will have about 500 or 600 people walk through that gym. I'll have over 100 kids playing ball, and I'm going to tell you, I love every minute of it. Now, if I were to go by critics, I wouldn't be on baseball fields in the hot summertime. Sheila even tries to tell me I'm too old to be out there. But I just have to take that and say she's going by her own age. She forgets. Difficulties, you're going to have them. God said, Moses, get the children of Israel and lead them to the land of Canaan. He said, folks, let's go. Don't take anything with you. We don't need anything. We'll be there in a couple of days. We'll eat when we get there. It took off with nothing. What was to be a couple of days' journey ended up to be 40 years in a wilderness. First thing they figured out, we should have brought some water. Second thing they figured out, we should have brought some food. The third thing they probably started figuring out is that these little babies wearing these clothes can't wear these same clothes forever. But you know what God did? God lit hot, dry, parched rocks in the wilderness to produce water. He let the clouds to rain manna and let the little kids' clothes grow with them. And 40 years later, they're still wearing the same clothes. I've seen a few of those people. Hello. I've seen a few of those people 40 years later still wearing the same thing. You can't get very close to them, but they're still wearing the same thing. So finally, after all the obstacles are over, they get to the land of Canaan, and somebody says, finally here. Finally here. And here comes somebody in the camp running and said they forgot to tell us giants live over there. You're going to have difficulties. But faith doesn't give in to difficulties. Faith says, I got a promise from God. Then there are times that things become, number 5, they become dead end. You ever feel like your life becomes dead end? You're locked in somewhere you can't get out of. You just feel like you're dead end. There's nowhere to go from here. What can I do? You feel like you're just dead end. Everything you do goes belly up on you. Is the Lowe house the only house that feels that way? You try so hard and can't get above it. You work so hard and you can't get above it. See, situations deteriorate from difficult to impossible. Things look to be impossible. But I refuse to give in to that. I refuse to give in to dead end because I don't believe that I'm dead-ended into anything, no matter what it is. I'm not even going to be dead-ended into death. I'm coming out of there. I'm not even going to stay there when I get there. I'm only there for a little while. See, if God can raise you physically, God can raise you emotionally. He can resurrect a dead career. He can resurrect you from health problems and make you better. God can deliver you, and the book of Corinthians says, He that has delivered us will deliver us again. What God has done, He will continue to do. Even He will do it better than what He has done. Number 6, and in closing, comes the deliverance. Deliverance is going to come. Faith leads you through these processes, but wait for the deliverance, because deliverance is going to come. Don't accept defeat. Defeat is not what we're made of. Accept the challenge. I'm more than able. I will do it. I will make it. I refuse to allow the enemy to take control over my life. I am bigger than that, made of bigger stuff than that. I am not at my end. When Moses got to the Red Sea, he thought it was all over, but God had a way of rolling it back. When Jesus was put in the grave, they thought it was all over, but God had a thing called resurrection. Deliverance is coming. Deliverance is coming in your life. God wants to turn your crucifixions into resurrections. He wants to turn your crucifixions into resurrections. How beat down are you? How much of people wished that you were, or that you thought that they felt, that they just wished you weren't there? Dead ends brings us into deliverance. Dead ends brings us into hope and promise. Brings us into life. And when it feels like there's just nowhere to go and no answer to all your problems, there's a deliverance coming. Because the deliverer promised me, I will never put more on you than what you are able to bear. But I will, with the temptation, I will make a way for your escape. The best thing that you can do with the situation that you may be in this morning is to believe that God can act on it and that God can turn it around. Because God is that kind of a God. Because God does what people can't do. God does what people cannot do. And God is a good God, loving and kind, generous and compassionate. God will be with you in the hours of midnight when everything around you is so black and so out of touch with reality, and all hope is crushing around you, and there's not a place you can go, or there's not a one you could cry out to, and you'd like to talk to your spouse, but you know they don't really understand, and nobody really understands. God is a God that understands. What is it in your life today? Right now, what is it in your life? As every head is bowed, every eye is closed, just for a moment of time, I want to ask you, what are you doing with your life? And what are you doing with your hopes? And what are you doing in the time of your delays, and in the time of your difficulties, and in the time of your struggles? Are you turning it over to Jesus and believing that Jesus will see you through? One songwriter said, through it all, I've learned to trust in Jesus. I've learned to trust in God. You feel like you're on a dead-end street? That life has just closed out on you? I'm here to tell you that God hasn't given up on you, and that God hasn't closed the doors on you, and that the love of God is saying to you right now, right here in this place, come. And I'm inviting you to come for a place of prayer, to a place of bowing yourself before the presence of God and just crying and weeping in His presence if you feel, just pour it all out. And God, here I am. You're going to sing, and the invitation is open for you. Come right now.
Trying to calm the raging battle in my mind.
Oh God.
In search of many answers, but my problems getting worse all the time. Just reach your hands to Jesus. He'll take you in and break the ties that bind.
Mighty God, mighty God. A couple of you ladies come with Sheila here this morning.
He'll be the lily in your valley.
A couple of guys come over here with Bill.
You can watch Him bloom all the time.
Oh yes!
I found the lily